Angelica Pickles is a character that I've always had mixed feelings towards. Being that she's generally the antagonist of the Rugrats, the primary feeling was always usually some flavor of dislike. More often than not, she's the one who tends to cause problems for pretty much everyone else in the show. If not causing problems for someone, she's likely making an effort to manipulate someone in some sort of way. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate her as a character, but like her or not, you gotta admit that she's almost always portrayed as an aggressor or an instigator of some sort. The thing is though, every once in a while, the writers would come up with a story that would paint Angelica in a different light, and as a result, the negative perception of her would be softened even just slightly. Whether it be a plot that makes you feel bad for Angelica, or one that leaves you feeling sentimental for the fact that she's always been there for the baby since day one, the end result would usually be a slightly less resentful feeling towards Angelica.
You guys are my best friends! Oh yeah? Really? Yeah! And even though I was always mean to you and broke your toys, the truth is, deep down, I like you too! I really like you! Gosh, Angelica, I wish you weren't moving away! Me too! I'm gonna miss you guys so much!
Realizing that underneath that hard and abrasive outer shell is a little girl with sensitive feelings would more or less feel like a breath of fresh air at times. We're all so used to seeing Angelica being a bully or acting a fool time and time again, so when the moment came that she would show some appreciation for the babies and break down those walls of anger, it always tended to be a really sweet moment. These moments would be used so tactfully throughout the series in a way that allowed the writers of the show to further shape our perceptions and feelings towards Angelica. This is something that not only applied during the original run of Rugrats, but also continued into its spin-off series All Grown Up. It would be an effective use of plotting that the show's writers would always keep in their back pocket because in all reality, it would usually result in a pretty good episode. In All Grown Up, the kind of hostility that Angelica brings to the table would definitely change from what it was in the original show. Whereas in the original Rugrats, it would come in the form of Angelica trying to scare the babies, take something she wanted from them, or get them in some form of trouble. All Grown Up would see Angelica still being rude, yet drastically less than she was in the original Rugrats. It was a more watered down, mild flavor of rude that generally focused around her thinking she's better than the Rugrats crew, mainly because she's older than them. Along with that though, came a change to the episodes that would tend to soften our perceptions of her. They would still exist, of course, however, with the show being more focused around the drama of being a preteen, they would come with a drastically different presentation than we had been accustomed to. However, that isn't always a bad thing though, and that's why today, on our nostalgic walk down memory lane, we're gonna check out an episode of All Grown Up that really changed how I look at Angelica as a character. But first, I just want to say thank you so much for clicking on this video and for being a part of my YouTube journey. I also want to give a huge shout out and thank you to one of my fans on YouTube by the name of Sage Arter. They've been following my YouTube journey for a long time now and always have positive thoughts to share in the comments of my videos, and that's something that I personally value a ton. On top of that though, Sage Arter is the one who commented suggesting that I cover this episode, which is what brings you and I to where we are today. So of course, thank you so much for your support, Sage Arter, and for your recommendation to check out this episode. Today, we are looking at none other than the Season 1 episode, Lucky 13.
Dillman are finally on the radar of life because our cousin's a teenager.
As Angelica continues to walk through the halls of her school, everyone is in complete awe of how cool she is now that she's a teenager. Just then, she's awakened from her daydream by one of the popular girls walking up and interrupting her.
I'm really sorry, but this table's reserved for the 13 and over crowd. Plus, you're kind of sitting in my chair.
Not like your name's on it, Savannah. Wow, and in gold, too.
Oh, well,
In a few days, I'll be 13 and have my own cool table. And who knows, might be the new hotspot.
As Angelica prepares to walk away, she reminds the girls that some of them haven't RSVP'd for her birthday party yet. She tells them that there's gonna be cell phones with unlimited minutes in the gift bags, which has two of the three girls just completely in awe. Meanwhile, Savannah is none too thrilled. After that, we cut to Angelica walking down the hall with Susie and Harold.
Taking on a 13er before you are one is like opening an umbrella indoors while walking under a ladder as you break a mirror, which drop when you open that dumb umbrella.
The minute I'm 13, Savannah and I will be equals, especially after my party, or as I prefer to call it, the new gold standard.
Later on, after school, we cut over to Angelica's house, where her mother is asking Angelica if she has any idea how Tommy, Chucky, Phil, Lil, Dill, and Kimmy's invitations got stuck behind the refrigerator. Charlotte is very quick to connect the dots that Angelica did it because she clearly doesn't want them at her party, and she tells them that she has to invite them. However, Angelica argues, calling them dweebs, whose idea of fun is smelling each other's socks.
You never know where a dweeb, someone may end up. Today a sock sniffer, tomorrow president of the New York Stock Exchange.
Ugh.
Angelica's mother then continues to tell her about all of the activities that she paid to have at the party, such as porpoise rides, pedicures, and even a psychic doing palm readings. Angelica says that's even more reasons as to why she doesn't want Tommy and his friends there, but despite her pleas, Charlotte doesn't budge. Just like that, we cut on over to the next day at school.
Here, and here. Sorry they're late.
And stepped on. Nothing says, I want you at my party like a big footprint.
Of course, if you already have other plans, I'll understand. For instance,
Lil starts to read the long list of things that Angelica presents for them to do instead of coming to her birthday party. When Angelica points out that Bossy and Flossie, the two-headed cow, is going to be appearing at the county fair, they are all sold and happy about it because none of them really wanted to go to her birthday party anyways.
I'm going to be a teenager and you guys aren't. I'd love to say it's been great knowing you, but why lie now? When you see me in passing, remember to look the other way. I'm onto bigger, better, and older things.
So, basically, same old, pretty much. Well, nothing's gonna keep me away. There's porpoise rides. They talk, you know. No way I'm missing what could be the most meaningful conversation of my life.
After that, we cut on over to Susie and Harold, who are shopping in a clothes store for Angelica's birthday present. As they shop, Susie and Savannah end up accidentally bumping into one another.
I'm a little obsessed with finding the perfect dress for my party.
Your party?
Really hope you can make it. Ooh, that dress wants me as much as I want it.
You're invited to my soon-to-be annual spring bash this Saturday. Uh-oh. The date!
At the realization that Savannah is planning a party for the same day of Angelica's birthday party, the two of them head straight to Angelica's house to tell her with a tub of ice cream in hand. They ring the doorbell and Angelica answers, holding a handful of invitations from people who all said no. They sit Angelica down in the living room and Susie puts it on Harold to deliver the bad news.
What? Now don't go all crazy, Angelica. You still have a bunch of yeses.
Hello? Oh, hi, Amanda. What? But you already said... Oh, yeah, whatever. Amanda said she couldn't risk turning Savannah down.
As the phone continues to ring with other people calling to cancel, we cut on over to Dee Dee's house where Charlotte is sitting at her kitchen table just crying her eyes out. She tells Dee Dee all about how she had to move oceans to get the porpoises scheduled to appear and that there's no way they could possibly reschedule. As she continues crying about the fact that nobody is coming to Angelica's party, Tommy, Chucky, and Phil overhear the conversation.
Oh, cold. No one's going to Angelica's party. That's porpoise. For why are you guys hanging outside the kitchen?
Angelica's party's kinda guest light.
Swank. More one-on-one time for me and my blowhole buddies.
Phil says that it serves Angelica right for always being so bossy, but Tommy, on the other hand, feels really bad for Angelica. The two end up butting heads slightly, and it's decided that the group will take a vote whether or not to go to Angelica's party.
No. We get it. We're here for the girls' votes anyway.
No!
Thanks for giving it some thought. Okay, Chucky, you're my last hope.
Seeing as I foresee this party as considerable potential damage to my self-esteem, I feel I have no choice but to vote no.
Tommy feels bummed about how none of his friends want to go, and he tells them that regardless of their answers, he still has to go because he's her cousin. As they continue to talk about it, we cut on over to Angelica in her bed, eating ice cream while crying as Susie and Harold try to comfort her. Susie suggests that Angelica could simply ask Savannah to change the date of her party, but Angelica calls her crazy, saying that there's no way she's going to come crawling to Savannah and ask her to do something like that. As soon as those words leave her lips, though, we cut right on over to the next day at school, where we see Angelica doing exactly what she said she wouldn't do.
We do have a problem, don't we? I mean, we wouldn't want to force anyone to choose.
It's like we think the same. By the way, I love how your eyeshadow matches your belt buckle.
Oh, thanks. Anyway, because I know how much your party means to you, I'll certainly see what I can do.
You're the best, Savannah.
After that interaction, we see Angelica sitting all by herself and planning her birthday when Tommy walks up to talk to her.
Look, we're cousins, and even though we've had our ups and downs, I don't want you to be alone at your party. So here it is. I'll be there.
Dear little cousin, I'll hardly be alone as Savannah is changing the date of her party. But because it was so sweet and pointless of you to offer to come, I'll be sure to mail you a piece of cake.
Tommy excitedly walks up to his friends, letting them know that he's off the hook since the party is back on, happy that he can now accompany them to meet the two-headed cow. After that, we cut on over to the lunchroom, where Angelica is talking with Susie and Harold about how excited she is that her party's back on.
So what day did Savannah move her party to?
She didn't say. Did I tell you there's gonna be an ice sculpture of me carved from the actual iceberg that sank the Titanic?
Well, what exactly did she say?
That she'd see what she could do.
Susie and Harold point out that Savannah saying that she'd see what she can do absolutely does not mean that she's going to be moving her party for sure. Angelica argues with them though, saying that they had this total teen communication that they just don't understand because they're preteens still. Just then though, Savannah walks up with her friends and Angelica asks her to tell Susie and Harold what date that she moved her party to.
Oh my gosh, didn't I tell you? I really tried to move things around, but no luck. Sorry. But you said that I'd see what I could do, and I did. Bye-bye.
Angelica is stunned by this as she drops her lunch tray and runs right out of the room, crying her eyes out. After that, Tommy and his friends who are sitting nearby overhear Savannah talking to her friends.
I don't understand why she actually thought I'd change the date. Doesn't she know I planned it for that day on purpose? I know it sounds mean, but Angelica did break a major rule by assuming she'd be popular before proven. It's a hard lesson, but it's for her own good. In the long run, she'll thank me.
I can't believe it. Someone actually out-meaned Angelica.
The group of friends ends up feeling mixed about what's happening to Angelica. On one hand, Tommy feels bad for Angelica and wants to do something to help her. Meanwhile, Phil feels like it's not their problem to worry about, and he'd rather just stay out of it.
I gotta do something.
Angelica isn't even my cousin, and I feel like doing something too.
I guess she's been in our lives so long, she's kind of like an evil, annoying cousin to all of us.
Just then, Savannah gets up and walks out of the lunchroom. Tommy looks at her, and when he sees the character on the back of her jacket, he gets an idea of just how they might be able to help Angelica.
Savannah?
Oh my gosh! You're a senor jumping bean fan too? Isn't it the cutest thing when he does the Mexican hat dance around his own tiny sombrero?
Uh-huh.
Tommy goes on and on about how Senior Jumping Bean is the world's cutest chihuahua, as Savannah shows him the hoard of collectibles she has in her locker shrine devoted to the rambunctious pup. Tommy then pulls out a ticket for the exclusive VIP after-hours book signing for Senior Jumping Bean at a local pet store.
I'm a VIP. How come I didn't get one?
Did I say VIP? I meant VVIP. Anyway, the thing of it is, I can't go. My father's having an ankleectomy. They're dissolving.
Tommy offers Savannah his ticket to the event, saying that she's the only other huge Senior Jumping Bean fan that he knows of. She happily takes it, saying that she was gonna have a party that day, but she's just gonna have to cancel it.
I can't believe you're giving this to a total stranger.
Truth. I'm not a teenager, but someday I will be, and I hope that someone of your popularity and eternal coolness will remember me.
Not only are you a fellow Senior Jumping Beaniac, but you're a first-class kiss-up. Thanks.
After Savannah leaves, Phil walks up asking if it worked, and Tommy is happy to tell him that it did, thanks to his smarts and Phil's home printing press. After that, we cut to the day of Angelica's party. We see the whole yard decked out and decorated as Angelica is talking to Harold and Susie, saying that she can't believe they made her go through with this. They try to calm her down, saying that you never know, some people might show up.
I'll tell you what I know.
Hey, Angelica!
Happy birthday! Oh, yeah, thanks. No one is going to show up at this party, and you want to know why? Yeah, hi, how are you? I'll tell you why. It's because
You were saying...
It's because they all came to their senses.
We see Angelica talking to Susie and Harold, explaining to them that everyone came because they recognize her equal popularity status with Savannah, but Susie corrects her, saying that Kimmy told her that Tommy and his friends pulled some strings to get Savannah to cancel her party.
Tommy, get over here now! Bossy's the real cow. Flossy's just a fake cow head. Well, then get over here as soon as Phil stops crying.
As the party continues, we see everyone having a blast and enjoying their time there. A little while later, Tommy and his friends show up, and Angelica approaches them, telling them that she knows what they did for her and that she wanted them here so that she could thank them. We see Chucky and Phil walk off to enjoy the party as Angelica talks to Tommy some more.
Senior Jumping Bean, huh? There was no book signing at the pet store. It was just free flea dip day. I found out he's your cousin, and you put him up to this in order to steal all my friends away from my party. Admit it!
Fake book signing? It's sneaky, underhanded, backstabbing. Something I'd normally do, but amazingly didn't.
Well, I want my friends back.
We then see Savannah walking around Angelica's party, telling everyone that the party at her place is back on. However, everyone there seems to be having such a great time that they don't want to leave. No matter how much Savannah tries hyping up her party and convincing people to go, nobody really seems to care.
Well, since your party's a bust, you probably don't have anything better to do. So if you want to stay, I won't kick you out.
Thanks. My staying would give this party an edge.
We see Charlotte getting everyone's attention, saying that the pre-course of the first course of their 8-course meal is about to be served, so everyone starts taking their seats. Savannah goes to sit by Angelica, but she stops Savannah, saying that those seats are taken by some cool kids.
Is she pointing at us, or do I have something hanging out of my nose?
Both. We scan on Angelica's cooldar? Get up there.
It's just that our long history together compelled us to act.
But our history is me yelling at you guys.
And that got us right here.
This episode is one that really gives me such a mixed bag of confusing feelings. First of all, I feel so sorry for Angelica in this episode. I will admit, it feels weird to feel bad for her about all this though. Like, she's been so mean to pretty much everyone around her for her entire life. Especially Tommy and his friends. She's been targeting them and treating them like garbage for so long now. Even in this episode, she treats them as if they're less than she is. You'd think that seeing Angelica finally get a taste of her own medicine would be somewhat satisfying, however, it just straight up wasn't. Seeing Angelica getting singled out and being treated so badly by Savannah really just made me feel awful for Angelica, and more than anything, it made me strongly dislike Savannah. It all makes sense though. In this episode, Tommy breaks it down in a very interesting way. When they're all sitting at the table after hearing Savannah talk about how she did this on purpose, Tommy makes a comment about how it's one thing to diss on someone who you're related to, and it's a whole different thing to be dissed on by an outsider. Now, this right here tracks and makes perfect sense. I completely see where he's coming from and why he'd connect those dots. However, there's a whole other layer on top of all this that adds to the complexity of it. Sure, Savannah is an outsider, and by Tommy's logic, it isn't okay for her to diss Angelica. But even further, we have to take into account Savannah's reasoning for doing this to Angelica. For Savannah, in her mind, Angelica needs to be taught a lesson for, quote, assuming she'd be popular before proving. Now, first of all, there seems to be some weird air about this show in which it seems like it's just generally assumed that you can't be popular until you're a teenager. Which, obviously, anyone who's ever been to public school knows that's a load of garbage. Age has absolutely nothing to do with popularity, and it's odd that all of the teenagers in the show act like they're so above everyone who isn't 13 yet. However, Savannah specifically sees herself as the popularity police. She has a specific table that she sits at, claiming that it's only for teenagers, which is funny because, like, it's just her and two other girls. I mean, statistically speaking, having that small of a friend group would actually make you pretty unpopular, but regardless of that, she acts like just because she's that age, it means that she gets to dictate who is and isn't popular. Then, of course, when Angelica made even one single insinuation that she's gonna be popular when she turns 13, Savannah took it upon herself as the judge, jury, and executioner of popularity to penalize Angelica for even thinking such a thing, and setting in motion a chain of events that will essentially make it so Angelica will never get to be popular. Then, of course, the icing on the cake, Savannah putting a spin on it, saying that Angelica will thank her for that one day. Like, first of all, okay, Savannah, whatever you need to tell yourself to help you sleep better at night, but furthermore, what are you even saying? Like, someday Angelica will just wise up and say,
Geez, Savannah, thank you so much for ruining my 13th birthday party. I thought I was so cool, and boy did you fix my wagon and set me straight.
I just can't handle it. Savannah's logic here is complete nonsense, and no matter how many excuses she puts on her actions, it doesn't negate from the fact that she's just a bad person in general. But with that all being taken into account, it makes sense why the feelings brought on by this episode are so confusing. It'd be one thing for Tommy and his friends to pull a prank on Angelica for her birthday because A, she's family, and B, she's had such a long and extensive history of doing bad things to them. But for Savannah to go as far as she did, simply just because Angelica insinuated that she's gonna be popular when she's a teenager too, was just completely uncalled for. If anything, I'd say that there's a high likelihood that Savannah wanted to ruin Angelica's party because she's worried that Angelica might be right about her popularity. By this point in the series, we don't know all too much about Savannah other than the fact that she's a supposedly popular 13-year-old who's obsessed with Senior Jumping Bean. We don't know about her home life or anything like that. However, we do know a ton about Angelica and her life. Angelica dresses like a popular girl, acts like a popular girl, and definitely has an attitude as big as her ego. But one big thing she does have in her favor for popularity is money. Now, don't get me wrong, Money definitely is not what defines someone as popular in everyday adult life, but for children, they are easily enamored with shiny and expensive things. Angelica, being spoiled by her filthy rich parents, leaves her in a position where she can afford to throw this huge, massive party that all these kids are going to go crazy for, which would in turn make her possibly more popular than Savannah is. So, with that being said, it doesn't take that extreme of a stretch of the mind to think that maybe Savannah might actually be jealous of Angelica deep down inside. And sure, maybe that was confirmed later on in the series, however, I definitely need to circle back and reaffirm the fact that at this point in the series, we don't know what Savannah's life is like. Sure, maybe her family is filthy rich too, and her party was going to be just as extravagant as Angelica's, but we don't know that for sure. One thing we do know for sure, though, is just how rude, spiteful, and manipulative that Savannah is. Throughout this one, we see her being rude to Angelica about where she was sitting in the lunchroom, we see her cunningly plan a party on the same day as Angelica's party out of spite, and we see her put on a very kind and manipulative tone to Angelica's face all the meanwhile. Like, just her talking throughout this episode, you can hear just how fake she is and the hidden malice behind the tone that she's trying to portray. Savannah, on all levels, feels like a very calculated kind of bully. She's very self-aware of how she is, where her intentions are, and exactly how people around her are perceiving her. On top of that, though, Savannah seems like she's a complete control freak. She's so used to being able to get what she wants and manipulating people with her popularity that when she gets that taken away from her, she tends to lose her composure. We see that happen specifically in the end when she arrives at Angelica's party. She confronts Angelica all heated and demands that she gets her friends back, like she has any control whatsoever over where these people go and what they do. Savannah, as a character, is one that I really just can't stand, and all in all, I feel like Tommy hit the nail on the head when he said in shock that someone out-meaned Angelica. I'm not surprised that she did either. Like, Angelica as a person isn't very subtle. She's brash and in your face. If she's mad at you, you're gonna know it because she isn't gonna hide it. You can take Angelica at face value for the most part, and it's not exactly hard to predict her next move or tell if she's lying. Savannah, on the other hand, is a full-blown wolf in sheep's clothing, and unfortunately, she has the wool pulled over the eyes of everyone around her. Like, even her two friends were surprised when they heard that she had planned her party for the same day as Angelica's on purpose. The look on their faces when she told them that really said it all. However, after she explained herself and her skewed perception that she's doing Angelica a favor, her friends are completely on board and not questioning Savannah's motives. That right there is a clear testament to just how manipulative she is and how good she is at smooth talking these easily manipulated middle schoolers. I do have to point out for a second, though, just how similar Angelica and Savannah are in a lot of ways. First of all, the two look oddly similar. Just look at Savannah's face shape compared to Angelica's. Then we take into account they're pretty much the same height, they both wear similar eye makeup. Like, in all reality, the only difference between these two looks-wise is the different hair and the way they dress. Outside of looks, though, their personalities are very similar. Both think really highly of themselves, looking down upon others. Both can be very mean-spirited. However, one big key difference is that Savannah tries to hide that side of her and put on this innocent popular girl mask. Meanwhile, Angelica is very upfront about how she is. With Angelica, you get what you get. But with that in mind, though, it makes sense that these two girls would butt heads automatically. They're a little too similar to one another with very strong personalities for them to be able to get along well. It's akin to two big, muscular, testosterone-filled A-list celebrities co-starring in the same movie together. Of course, they're gonna butt heads and fight for dominance. In this case, though, instead of beefy movie stars, we're talking about big-headed children. I do have to say, though, as far as these kids go, it's ridiculous how much Angelica romanticizes the idea of becoming a teenager. In the beginning scene to this one, before the intro rolls, we see her daydreaming about her riding in a convertible with her friends and breaking up with her boyfriend via a conversation on her cell phone. Then, when the episode starts, we see her continue to daydream about it, feeling like she's basically gonna be an A-list celebrity as soon as she turns 13. It's like she has this idea that the second you become a teenager, something just clicks and all of a sudden you skyrocket in importance. This right here does a good job of conveying just how important this birthday is to Angelica and how high of hopes she has for her birthday party. But on top of that, it highlights the childhood innocence of looking forward to growing up. I remember being a kid and just thinking about how excited I was to become an adult. I remember thinking about how cool it would be to get to stay home and chill instead of going to school. I think, honestly, a lot of us as kids have been there. However, that mindset comes along with an eventual huge wake-up call. At some point, you graduate from high school and hit the real world, and you realize it isn't all chilling and hanging out at home instead of being at school. It's a lot of working long hours just to make ends meet, and doing adult things like paying bills and waking up at the crack of dawn to get to your job. When you're a kid, though, all you know is going to school and doing the same thing day in and day out. So at that point in life, moving past school seems like a light at the end of the tunnel, but more often than not, we realize that when we reach that end of the tunnel, we're met with the entrance of a lot bigger and scarier tunnel ahead. On a bit of a brighter note though, I definitely want to point out that I'm glad Phil came around and ended up helping Tommy and his friends with making things right for Angelica. That must have been a really hard thing to do, especially on the heels of the way that Angelica has treated them for their entire lives. They're so used to Angelica being mean to them and pulling pranks on them and trying to coax them into bad situations. At this point, they just expect that kind of stuff from her. When you're so used to someone being like that towards you, it's hard to find even the slightest bit of want to help them in their time of need. The thing is though, they are good people. As much as Phil hated the idea of helping her, he did it because at his core, he's a good person, and good people take the high road and do the right thing. Speaking of good people though, I have to take a sec to touch on Tommy and his acts throughout this one. Tommy really is such a great person, and he has a good head on his shoulders. Throughout this episode, he's literally the only one who didn't second guess helping Angelica. Phil, Lil, Kimmy, and Chucky all said no originally, but Tommy was dead set on being there for her no matter what. He was even willing to sacrifice a fun day with his friends in order to try to make Angelica's birthday even slightly better. Regardless of Angelica being his lifelong bully, he still cares for her inside, and he didn't want her to be sad and alone on her birthday. He's a very selfless person, and it shows. It just kind of sucks that Angelica doesn't show much appreciation for that fact at all. When Tommy approaches her at school and kindly says that he's going to be there for her because literally no one was going to her party, she throws it right back in his face and offers to mail him a piece of cake under the impression that Savannah was actually going to change the date of her party. Of course, at the end of the episode, she ends up being thankful for him and appreciates what him and his friends did for her, but again, it took them jumping through some serious hoops for her to finally give in and give them just a little bit of credit. One can't help but wonder where Angelica gets this kind of mindset from, but it doesn't take much thought to realize just where it stems from. Without a doubt, it's her parents. Her dad has always been a pushover and just lets her walk all over him. Meanwhile, her mom doesn't exactly set the best example either. I definitely have to take a sec to point out how distraught that Charlotte was about Savannah's party being the same day as Angelica's. She was in Dee Dee's kitchen, full-blown crying her eyes out harder than Angelica was. At first glance, I saw this, and part of me assumed that she was upset about how all this is going to be a huge waste of money because no one is coming to the party, but this episode makes it pretty clear that money isn't really the root of the issue. Charlotte and Drew have plenty of money, and odds are they could probably afford to outright buy those porpoises if they really wanted to. For Charlotte, all of this upset over the party was centered around her own ego and confidence. In a sense, Charlotte lives vicariously through Angelica. We've watched her raise Angelica from a little kid, stressing the importance of being cutthroat and doing whatever it takes to come out on top. Now that Angelica is growing up and Charlotte is getting older though, she relies heavy on Angelica being popular and achieving her goals to find her own importance as a mother. To Charlotte, Angelica being popular and having this big successful party means her own success. If the party is a flop, that means in Charlotte's mind that she's failed. Then of course, in comparing the two, their reactions to the lead up to the party not going so well were very similar. Both were being very dramatic and completely distraught over it. However, Angelica is the only one who really has a good reason to feel that way. Like, it was her birthday party after all. But with that being said, we can definitely see where Angelica gets a lot of her mindsets and tendencies from. But what do you think? Did this episode make you feel bad for Angelica too? Let me know in the comments down below. I always love seeing your guys' feedback. Of course, massive shout out with so many thanks to my patrons, especially those of you in the true 90s kids tier. I'm so lucky to have your support, and I hope you know that I genuinely appreciate it more than words could ever say. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like and give a little bit of praise to the algorithm in hopes that it pushes this one to everyone else, and as always, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.